This is ABC Radio Melbourne with Ali Moore.
Yes, work it out conversation this afternoon. John Georgiosky is the Director and Principal Consultant at Alpha Resumes. Hello, John.
Hi, Ali. Great to be back.
So we're talking about micromanaging. You know, that's that manager that stands over you, gives you helpful tips all the time, you know, likes to ask lots of questions, see where you're up to. If it's happened to you or if you are the micromanager, give us a call, 1300 222 774. John, what are we actually talking about? I just gave a few examples there, but, you know, what's the actual definition of a micromanager?
I think at a high level, a micromanager is someone who will quite often be taking an unreasonable level of control or tracking of their employees. It may be constantly being over their shoulders or asking them 5 times in a day whether they've done something. And really, it can often hinder performance, cause burnout, make staff feel really undervalued, like I'm here to do a job, but I'm constantly being told what to do or being tracked. So really, it comes down to that balance of somebody having that unreasonable level of control or that need for oversight to see everything.
How much of that's perception, though? So I might feel that I'm being micromanaged, whereas my micromanager might feel that they're just giving me adequate supervision.
Absolutely. And I think great management or leadership, there needs to be this element of discussion with employees around their communication preferences. And we often hear the term emotional intelligence nowadays. If somebody is coming up to an employee and asking them the same thing 5 times in a day, and clearly they're disgruntled or they're absent or they provide a comment that shows that, hey, I don't need this, maybe it's too much. There are some workforces and industries where perhaps that's required, where they're in a really high pressure environment or there's supervision there. But essentially, if staff are trusted to do a job, particularly if they're performing at those standards and there hasn't been communication around that, that's when that concern starts to come into play, where there hasn't been a discussion around poor performance, but I'm constantly being asked what I'm doing or being monitored, or when I go to the toilet, my peers are being asked, where has X and such gone? That becomes an issue.
It's also that constant, like, where are you up to?
Absolutely. And again, comes back to trust being eroded, employees feeling like perhaps they're not there to do their job, or they're being monitored. They're being hired to do a job. Let them do it with some appropriate oversight. We have discussions, we have performance reviews, we have those types of things, but constantly monitoring them throughout a day can often lead to people feeling really burnt out, demotivated, and often that means looking for other employment, which is not a good feeling at all.
Is that often the end result of someone being micromanaged?
It very often is. I was reading some SEEK stats from this year, and it suggested that 39% of Australians have left a job due to being micromanaged or due to poor management. And sometimes that's from the get-go, but often it's a result of new managers coming in or someone being appointed to fix a performance issue, and rather than consulting or engaging a team, they take it upon themselves to start enforcing rules, and people don't like that when someone comes in and starts stirring up that pot as well.
If you've got a question around micromanaging, maybe you are being micromanaged and you want to know how to deal with it, or maybe you are the micromanager and you also want to know how to deal with it and where to draw the line between reasonable oversight and micromanaging. Give us a call, 1300 222 774. We'll come back with our Work It Out conversation with John Georgiosky in just a tick. Let's check the traffic again, though. Here's Dan Velling.
ABC Radio Melbourne. Traffic.
Ali, outbound on the Westgate Freeway, a 5-car collision at Grieve Parade. It's in the left carriageway, blocking 2 of the 3 lanes there, and significant delays pushing back to the top of the Westgate Bridge. The inner carriageway heading outbound on the Westgate moving a whole lot better at the moment. And some good news on the trains. Trains on the Cranbourne and Pakenham lines are now resuming between Caulfield and Westhill following a police request at Murrumbina. Trains will run at an altered timetable for a while with delays of up to an hour likely. V-line trains between Southern Cross and Traralgon will also resume. That's the latest traffic and transport at 13 minutes to 6.
Hi, it's Rochelle Hunt. Why are your stories important? It's because your stories are what make talkback radio work. Your stories give us an insight into the real issues, the real implications, and the real people behind the news headlines. Without you, Talkback Radio just doesn't work.
100 years of your stories. 100 years of 774 ABC Radio Melbourne. This is ABC Radio Melbourne with Ellie Moore.
And you're also with John Georgioski from Alpha Resumes, and we're having our Work It Out conversation where we are talking this afternoon about being micromanaged or being a micromanager. Has it happened to you? Maybe it's happening to you right now. Have you got the annoying micromanager? Do you know how to deal with it? And maybe you've got some tips. 1300 222 774. John, what do you do if you're being micromanaged?
I think it's a great question, and often there needs to be some form of a discussion, or the point needs to be raised before we jump into doing that, and potentially that can become a conflict. Good idea to perhaps take a few notes of specific examples where this has been happening, so we've documented them.
So you're coming with evidence, not just a vague sense that you're all over me.
Yeah, we're coming in with evidence that you asked me 5 times yesterday regarding this particular task at these times, and then often on the first approach, politely broaching the topic by, I've noticed that you check in on these particular things. Maybe is there something that I can adjust in my approach, or is there another way we can look at performance? And
so put the onus back on yourself. That might be something that I can do that will make you less inclined. So don't go on the attack. Yeah, you're really annoying me.
Absolutely. When we start going on the attack, nothing good's likely to come from that. So by someone going, is there something I can do to improve my performance or make some adjustments, or where we can perhaps discuss that once a week or at a particular time, that allows me to be more productive and get on with my job as well.
Gary's joined us from, not sure where you are, Gary. Are you actually in Greece, Gary?
I'm in Komitini. It's in northern Greece.
Well, we do go far and wide. Very lovely to hear from you. Have you had a micromanager experience?
I have various and contradictory ideas about the whole thing. Certainly, I've had experiences of micromanaging, and I can agree that it can undermine confidence and such. It's I suppose, commensurate on managers, how they characterise that conversation and such, and when they back away. I had a system of reviewing my senior managers when I worked, and I was expected in the wards, and that was a part of a normal business day. They were quick conversations about what had gone on overnight and such, but they weren't unduly prolonged. When you're speaking to your staff, your charge nurses now nurse unit managers are busy, and so you have to
be efficient.
Those things, and when you wait for information.
Yeah, but have you yourself felt that you've sometimes been too? Have you micromanaged? I'll just put it bluntly.
Well, I wrote in to say I'd also experienced the obverse, and when I'd been held responsible things I wasn't orientated to. So it goes both ways. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's an interesting point Gary makes, though, that if you are being held responsible, you want to ensure that things are being done appropriately.
It can, and look, there are certain circumstances where perhaps micromanagement or a similar form can be appropriate. It can often be used in really high stakes or high pressure environments.
We sound like a hospital.
Sometimes like hospitals, it does need to be there. And often with new staff as well, where there is a need for supervision and support there. However, the expectation should be set that while you're in training or during this period, this is what that's going to look like. So someone's not feeling like every day I come to work, I've just got someone on my back watching everything I'm doing. So it's all about that expectation setting and people being aware of when and how it's going to be used as well.
Kate's in Beaumaris. Hi, Kate.
Oh, hello, Ellie. Hello. I just thought I'd share my very probably unusual situation where I've worked for a wonderful company, a corporate company for 20 years, and I've worked for the same line manager who probably pathologically would be a micromanager. I'd just like to add to the point, just put my 2 cents on the detrimental effect it can have on someone long term. I'm currently on stress leave because of it. I thought it sort of hit the wall after a while, but just to to add to that, it has an incredible impact on, like you said, people who have been trusted to do a job, otherwise thrive in, people-centric cultures. But if there's one person who is, rejecting timesheets and mistrusting work and opening files that they've worked on and changing them, and it really has just a monumental impact, which I'm now currently in a sort of a healing process too.
Oh, Kate, I'm sorry that for you that's been obviously a really awful situation. And is that what was happening? Were you finding that every single thing that you did was being checked over or second guessed?
Absolutely, and in the team as well. But sort of part B to that would be, when you do report things like this to leadership, there must be a point where there is sort of like an ownership about it. Like I've lost great team members, co-workers who I would now call otherwise lifelong friends, but lost because of this one person. At what point would leadership sort of have an ownership in providing a safe workplace, so to speak?
Interesting point, John. I mean, what if Kate's finding what happened to her is happening to many? Then the problem's not them, is it? The problem is the micromanager.
Very often it is, and it can happen at various different levels in an organisation. Sometimes it's one leader. Sometimes there's pressure from above, particularly in environments where there's really high performance expectations. We see it a lot in areas like financial services and banking and legal and consulting, even in areas of government as well, and that can get pushed down. It creates this toxic work culture, and often toxicity breeds toxicity. You start to get that negative environment. People start leaving. And there's a saying out there, I guess, people don't leave jobs, they leave bad managers or bad cultures. And that's unfortunately one of the side effects of micromanagement. Sometimes it needs to be brought up with senior management or with HR to get that bit of advice there and frame it around, this is affecting my productivity or my well-being or my ability to, help this company innovate and thrive, and how we can fix that together.
Kate, did you ever go to the boss above?
I have, and I've very quickly found out in the company that, again, I've sort of spent 20 years plus at that. Even though they might have sort of policies of, we wouldn't tolerate bullying or that sort of thing, people shut down very quickly, and you become the troublemaker, I guess, that you've sort of. It surprised me, because I really felt like I was in a culture of, you speak out, you'd be supported, but and I'm not the only one who's spoken out, interestingly, and the others who haven't gone.
Kate, good luck with your healing process, and thank you for being generous and sharing your story. I think actually a similar question from Owen in Mont Albert. Hi, Owen.
Oh, hi. It's pretty much similar as Kate, but my situation is a little bit different. So I'm an external.
Oh dear, where have you gone? Sorry, you just dropped out. Owen, you just dropped out. Just say that sentence again.
So I'm an external consultant, and I work for a client. I have been working for the last 2 years, and I work with a manager who was great, and I get along very well with the manager of that organization. No micromanagement, half an hour meeting, and everything was delivered. Early this year, part of my work was given to another manager, another project within the same organization. So 1.5 days to second manager and 3.5 days to the first manager. This second manager is so micromanagement that my whole 1.5 days go into just writing the email. I'm a consultant, so I have to do the work plus the email.
Yeah.
And he thinks that he has to just reply to the email.
Yeah, and
I don't know how to manage this.
That's really hard, Owen, and quite often this is an example of where something is affecting your productivity and your performance because so much time is being taken on monitoring. Quite often I see in consulting, new managers come in, you've got to track every single minute of every day, and it's exhausting. And sometimes we need to just brace that conversation with, is there a time where we can talk about my feedback and my deliverables, and try and shift that focus more to what are the goals that I need to achieve as opposed to tracking every little task that I've done.
And I liked your earlier idea of maybe framing it, what can I do in the way that I work that might, mean that you don't need to expend so much, effort on your behalf. Interesting question from Gina on the text line saying, it would be great to hear your guest, that's you, John, talk about the overlap between micromanaging and bullying.
It can be a really fine overlap there, and it comes down to part of its intentions. And I think with micromanaging, often it comes back to a number of things. It can just be poor communication where someone perhaps doesn't have the right skills there. It can sometimes be based on pressure to meet particular targets or instructions from above. But often inexperienced leadership training as well around how to deliver a message. With bullying, there's quite often a little bit more there where we start to pick on certain people as opposed to just performance metrics, or there may be other elements that come into play as well. But there can be a really fine line, and at the end of the day, if somebody is feeling uncomfortable in their work, they're feeling surveilled rather than supported, that could suggest a problem. And often best thing to do may be seeking some advice from HR or a mentor or someone else that works in those spaces.
John's in Eltham. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was funny enough promoted in my job to the level of incompetency, which is quite unique. And as a result of that, managed to upset quite a few people. But at the end of the day, I learned from it. And
John, you're quite hard to understand. Can you just talk directly into the mouthpiece?
Yeah, I thought I was.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just the line's not great. So what happened in the end? Were you micromanaged because of that?
Well, I actually was micromanaging other people, and then I realised, doing the wrong thing here.
And John, it sounds like it sounds.
I moved on, and I promoted myself back down the ladder.
Yeah.
And
gee, that's a huge self-awareness, John.
I think so. And I think in John's case here, what he's mentioned is he was thrown into a management role, from what I understand. There probably wasn't that training or support there. And when you haven't led people before, it's a tough gig. And there's that level of understanding what works well for one employee.
But to work out that you're not